Hello, welcome to today's video. We're going to talk about a demo case for audio transcribe in AWS. So the idea is you're going to take an input file, which is audio file, then this tool will generate text output for you. So you can see on the screen is a very simple flow designed for this process. Mostly we're going to talk about the input output part and probably show a bit of scene with the group crawler in the backend. And separate video, we can show probably data integration. You can pipe the data into a Snowflake as an external stage. So let's have a look the pretty much each step for the process. The first one, I do have a dummy table, a bucket I created in S3. That's to hold the input file. There's some dummy file I used for the trials. At the moment, we're going to just stick with MP4. So I do think there's additional support, 2 or 3, a more additional type you can use. Most importantly is the Lambda function itself. Go to the transcribe API. So let's have a look at Lambda. The Lambda can be set on top with S3 as a part object, as a trigger. I think for different file type, you can probably set up just slightly different variation of the Lambda function. Depends on the file type, you trigger different Lambda process states. The code of Lambda, let's maximize the screen to see. I used learning from the Cloud Quest, which is very useful. They do literally have a whole chapter on speech to text. At the moment, let's talk about the code I did. The only slight modification I did in between, for example, I read one more package for regex because it turns out when you do a batch loading, they may have a file name issue. Logging, as you would expect, good practice. S3 bucket, that's what you call. Output key, I do not think it's essential for the general purpose. It's used for output the metadata, not the job output itself, because it runs in a separate the Lambda function call later. Because CloudWatch does track your things, so if you're not that particular care about the success failure, or you just use AWS console itself, you may not need the output file location. So for that, I just created some kind of dummy holding payload. Lambda function, that's the main part for this triggering. For us, we're gonna read in for each event. So you can see login events. For the record, the default script from the AWS that gave you the bucket and the key. So to understand this too, let me take a screenshot here to notice. So for us, that's the test file we're going to input, the test case. So all you care is where the bucket is. Then you have the key, which is the whole file, subfolder file path. The reason I use regex, because for me, I'm going to pass out the file name later. Remember, in S3, the file is stored as literally simple objects. It's not necessarily stored in a file structure. So the whole path is used to find where the path is. You only see the hierarchical structure in S3 just because the way the naming convention is used to display it. With that idea, bucket key is fine. The issue encountered, let me just highlight this job name first. The default script only used transcribe job with a timestamp. So when I was running additional case, particularly when you do a batch process, you load 10 files in one go. Lambda will trigger, but only the first file will be able to process correctly, because when the second file comes in, Lambda, particularly at the minute level, Lambda will say, hey, there's our file with that name already, so it failed to start. That's why I decided to add a file name component into the job name, so make it a bit more unique. You can put a timestamp up to seconds, but I think Lambda trigger quite quickly, so even up to seconds may not handle the issue. Plus, with the file name, you may be able to pass out later on, because you may want to know which file corresponding to which audio output from the transcribe. Hence, that's our chunk. The additional line I added for file name it's passed out with the key and the actual file name itself. Due to the convention needed, so you cannot have space, brackets, so some additional replace probably can be made more compact. Transcribe itself, we call it, decided the file name. So the transcribe job, this comes with the script itself, not much has changed. The only thing probably worth mentioning is modified media format. You can go to a website to check how many things support. I think it's MP3 and MP4, WAV, maybe those. I think maybe there were more. You can just design different lambda for each of those guys. Language code, because I'm not based in UK, so I changed from the US default to the Great Britain. The other ones in the bottom, everything else is more for the logging purpose. And you can see the output key, initial file path, it's used to output the metadata for the job. Remember, within the response, that's where the output is going to. So it's called the transcribe output. The output key in the JSON dump, that's dump for the job meta information. They give the sample code for testing, so that's the one format I used. So we can run a job, just going to probably run the test, invoke the session. Success run, so we can. Next, let's have a look at the output. So I have an output folder. You can see all the results is a JSON file loaded in the S3 bucket. We have transcribe job, timestamp, file name. We can download each of those to have a look at the results. I have downloaded a few. Let's just open the VS Code to look a bit better. So in the VS Code, we can format it. JSON. Let's go to the quick to mention item. Reasonably straightforward, so it's going at per word level. You have a timestamp on it, which range, confidence, etc. We may not care as much in close bracket. For us, we're more interested in the transcript. So you can see within the nested structure, the transcript is a text what we care about. Generally speaking, if you have a very standard conversational text, the tool does a very good job to pick up. Pretty much AWS trained the model for you, so it should be more performant than your individual practice. You can add in a custom list because if you have any technical terms, acronym that may not be easily picked up, yes, you can supplement those things and train a bit more customized version of the script. For those things, we can load into a central location. For example, if you want query or the data you within purely in AWS, it's still in the S3 bucket. Asina, that's something you can go for. So there's a link we can click for that video. Otherwise, it's data, it's done. So you can always move things around. There's a separate video I did to link AWS to Snowflake with storage integration, which you can also click here. Hopefully give it a try. The tool itself, the API, makes things call much easier as long as you have the Lambda function, the script. AWS, I think the documentation provides some of the options. Some of those can be modified, tailored a bit, depends on your own individual use. So at a most bare minimum, it's quite easy to get started using the service. All right. Thank you for watching the video.